What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Real VR Radio Show. Part of the 31 Nights of Halloween series. It is October 2nd. It is a brand new episode. There's a lot going on. Just along with the show, trying out these different show tunes and trying to get things rolling. But one of the things that I wanted to start implementing right now is this new sort of thing that I wanted to start was start telling some stories on the show. And I had a few people submit a few stories that I can actually read on the show, and I wanted to give a special shout out to those guys who have been more than willing to supply me some pretty great stories to read on the show. And I would really like you guys to check it out. So, without further ado, I will get started on that. So the first story comes from Danny Torres, and the title of the story is The Man in the Window. Things have been tough for me, my mom and I, ever since my dad left us 2 years ago. At least I was old enough to get myself to and from school, and I knew my way around a microwave, but I wasn't old enough to get a job, and the bills were piling up. My mom decided to get a second job, a night job. Maybe part-time, and not something to brag about, but it would keep our heads above water. I remember the first night like it was yesterday. My mom apologizing up and down for having to leave me alone. I told her I'd be fine, and honestly, I was pretty excited. She wouldn't be home until late, and that meant I could stay up late. There was a monster movie marathon, so who would complain? It was just around 9:30, and I was right in the thick of some Japanese gore fest when I swore I heard something outside. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe the movie got to me. Either way, I had to check it out. I hesitantly peered out of the living room window, looking to the left, then the right, and nothing. Then, I noticed directly across the way a man standing in his window, just staring. I couldn't really tell what he was staring at, but it freaked me out. I stood at the window for at least a minute, as long as my heart could bear it, and he didn't move. That was it for me that night. I was done with the monster flicks, done with the freaky dude in the window, and tried to fall asleep. The next morning, I told my mom about the man. First, she was upset I was up so late. Then she asked if I had been watching scary movies. Needless to say, I got the it was all in my imagination thing, and that was that. That night, after my mom left, I didn't feel comfortable alone. It was like that feeling of someone watching you, and just after 9 again, I swear I heard something. It was just like the last, except there was no horror movie marathon. Against what my brain was screaming at me, I pulled myself again to the window. There he was. The man, just staring out of his window. This time, I darted away as quick as I could and ran to my room. It was so weird. It got the hair on my neck standing on end. The next morning, I told my mom, but she just brushed it off, saying it was probably just a nervous old man and had nothing to do with me. I wasn't so sure but what I could do. My mom left for work that night, even though I begged her to stay. I tried to take my mind off the man. I watched TV, I played music, I even did all my homework. But still I wondered if he was out there, staring from his window at me or God knows what. My curiosity got the better of me, and I made my way to the window. My fear was realized in the moment because there he was, the man in the window, just staring. I tried to keep my presence a secret and see just how long he would stand there. My heart felt like it was going to leap out of my chest, but I stayed there at the window in some sort of weird staring contest. Then it happened. He moved away from the window, and I breathed a sigh of relief. My mom was right. I was worried about nothing. Suddenly, his front door opened, and my comfort changed to dread in an instant. I watched from my window, trying my best not to be seen, watching him walk down his driveway, then across the street, then up my driveway. I choked in fear and ran for the telephone. I dialed 911 and waited, my heart jackhammering a million miles a minute. Finally, an answer. I explained to the lady that I thought someone was trying to break into my house, and she said help would be on the way and asked for my address. I managed to get out of the first 3 numbers when I was grabbed from behind. I dropped the phone, felt these dirty, greasy hands wrap themselves around me. I screamed as loud as I could and shook myself, trying to break free, but I was lifted from the ground. I could feel the hot breath on my neck, smell the stale, rotten stench from my attacker. I couldn't help but start crying, screaming my lungs out for my mom, for anyone, for help. Then there was a thud. I was falling with the man toward the floor. We hit and his grip loosened. I rolled away and scrambled behind the couch. Then I heard a voice say, "It's okay. You're safe now." I looked up, shaking and bewildered. There were 2 men, one on the floor who wasn't moving, and another standing with a baseball bat. "You're okay," he said again. "I'm your neighbor from across the way." My jaw dropped in confusion. "I've noticed a strange man lurking around your house every night for the last few days, and was concerned you might be in danger. I noticed your mom leaving and knew that you would be here by yourself." The police arrived shortly afterwards, and between our 2 stories, the mysterious assailant was taken into custody. I thanked my neighbor as much as I could, and from that day, I always felt safer when I looked outside and saw the man from his window across from me. The end. That was an amazing story, man. I really have to give props to Danny on this story, and I gotta say, man, I was really just immersed into this whole story, knowing that something like that kind of just, it's so simple. It's just direct to the point. It's pretty awesome. I mean, it built you up. You know, you kind of felt like you were in this story, and it was just so, I don't know, you're just so immersed into the whole plot line. Fuck, I was kind of playing that in my head as like it was like a short movie or something. And I was thinking about the house from Halloween, and I was thinking about like just, you know, Laurie Strode's house, and, you know, the same house, and I was just kind of thinking about that, and it just stuck with me. I don't know why, but damn, man, that was a really good story. And I don't know, I'm still thinking about it. It's kind of like, damn. This next story comes from Dexter Zippy, who submitted the story titled "The Goat Man Across America." A few hundred miles to the west of Prince George's County is another goat-horned beast. The Pope Lick monster is said to haunt the area around an old train trestle in Jefferson County, Kentucky, just outside of Louisville. Sightings of the monster go back to the 1950s, when some Boy Scouts were chased from their camping spot on the banks of Pope Lick River by a screaming beast that threw rocks at them. Like the Maryland Goatman, this Kentucky cousin is known to attack young couples who trespass in his domain, and has been blamed for mysterious livestock mutilations that have occurred on farms in the surrounding area. 11 additionally, he is said to be responsible for a number of deaths by teenagers who have jumped from the 100-foot high trestle using either hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure trespassers into the trestle to meet their death before an oncoming train. In Fort Worth, Texas, there is a Lake Worth monster. The first known sighting of this creature occurred in the summer of 1969, when John Reinkart, his wife, 2 other couples were parked at Lake Worth late one night, and a truly vile and mysterious-looking creature came storming out of the thick branches of a large nearby tree. The horned monster was said to be covered with scales and fur, and left behind a deep scratch across the side of the car as they fled the scene. Police investigated the area of the attack, but nothing turned up. The Fort Worth Star-Telegram's headline the following day read, "Fishy man goat terrifies couple parked at Lake Worth," and the local monster hunt was on. That evening, the creature was seen running across a stretch of road close to the Lake Worth Nature Center. Shortly after, a group of would-be vigilantes chased the goatman through the woods and up a rocky bluff. The panicked creature tossed an old car tire down his pursuers, who quickly retreated to safety. Residents of Washington County, Wisconsin, have lived with goatman legends that supposedly date back to the mid-19th century. The original story goes that returning Civil War veteran was traveling with his new bride in a horse-drawn wagon along the desolate Hogsback Road when his axle broke. He left his companion with the wagon while he went off for help. After hours of waiting, the bride was startled by the sound of something sniffing and growling outside the wagon. She peeped outside and was terror-stricken to see a dark, hairy creature with the body and head of a goat but walking upright like a man. She hid in the wagon until the monster appeared to be gone and then ran off in the direction of her husband. She followed the footprints through the mud until she eventually came across his bloodied body hanging from a tree that was surrounded by hoofprints. Ever since then, it's been said that the goatman preys on hapless drivers who get stranded on Hogsback Road, and they've never been seen again. Sightings and encounters of large hairy horned man creatures have also been reported in Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, Missouri, Oregon, Washington, and as far as north as Ontario, Canada. Yeah, that story was... Whew! There's been several stories, of like goatmen or mutated, goats that, maybe walk like men or somewhat of some forth, something like that. But it's kind of trippy. I know we've heard of stories of poltergeists, and you don't really hear stories about witches and stuff, other than folk tale and stuff like that. And if you're into hocus pocus, that's some bullshit. But it's the same thing that happens every year, where I guess you could say people are more, intrigued by mysterious stories, mysterious sightings. Obviously it's year round. Just like we had the Storm Area 51 event just a month ago. And, we had several, I don't know how many people showed up to Area 51. They threw a concert. I don't even know if that was a thing. Some people, were just so dedicated to just being there at Area 51. And it kind of just stuck out. Kudos to them. It worked out for the best. Nobody got hurt or anything. Some people got arrested because some people actually tried to get in Area 51. But, you get past, the front gate, or you get past the entry point onto the base. But it's been said that Area 51 is, not just an above ground surface thing. It's got, maybe underground tunnels. It's said to be, several miles long, several miles deep underneath the ground. I'm not too sure. But, who in the right fucking mind would storm Area 51? You would think of stuff like, maybe storming the White House, or storming, the Capitol building or something. I don't know. But it would make so much more sense instead of storming Area 51 and risking, the possibility of someone getting shot or something. I'm not saying that you wouldn't not get shot if you stormed the White House, but I think you would have, you would make some sort of progress. If there was as many people that showed up to Area 51 showed up to the White House, I think you would have some sort of progress or something. I don't even know if they do tours to the public anymore at the White House for people to, see stuff. But I'm not too sure. But the third and final story for the second episode of the 31 Nights of Halloween comes from Belinda Ramirez, and I really like the story. It's kind of short, but it's actually a local story, so I really hope you guys enjoy it. On a cool spring night at Bocasillo 2000, a McAllen Disco, the night that birthed the legend of the woman who danced to her grave with the devil. It was April 13th, 1979, Good Friday, when the pious commemorated the crucifixion of their Savior. The young woman wasn't supposed to be at the club that night, as the legend goes. She had defied her parents and her religion to dance the night away. The legend goes that a handsome stranger dressed in black pulled up to the club in a black Lincoln Continental. The man was not a club regular. but people have never seen him before. The men in black swept the young lady onto the dance floor with unmatched grace. The smell of sulfur trailed the unknown man. Suddenly, a scream overcame the loud music and conversation. Bouncers rushed from all angles toward the dance floor as the man seemed to have disappeared into the crowd. They couldn't find him. One of the guards actually saw the door open and thought it was just the wind, but they had a heavy metal door. When the bouncer noticed that the door was open, he would throw people out and he would hit them against the door, knowing that the door was pretty heavy. So it could have been the wind that just flung the door open. The club is no longer standing. It's just a lot south of the Nolana Street along west side of North 10th Street. It's vacant, with overgrown grass, a paved driveway, and a decrepit sign for a fajita restaurant, with other signs warning visitors against trespassing. A long story short, the story goes that a woman who had defied against her parents' wishes and her religion from Good Friday went to the club with some friends who she ended up meeting this mysterious man who was dressed in all black. The legend also continues to note that while dancing on the floor, she noticed that this man had approached her and asked her to dance. While dancing with this man, it was been said and noted that the man had not legs or feet of a human, but those of a goat. And several people took note and noticed that this guy had, legs like a goat, and he had hooves instead of feet. So the legend goes that this woman danced with the devil that night. And I'm not too sure if this is, something that, truly happened. A lot of people did say and have said before, and I've heard this many times, McAllen is actually a city that is about 35-40 minutes away from here, from where I am. And it's been said that, that the legend is pretty true. I mean, it has happened in McAllen. It has happened, and a lot of people have said the same story. She danced with the devil that night. So what's truly scary about this is that, people could smell sulfur. I mean, if you know what sulfur smells like, obviously you're knowing what's going on. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, the club is a dark place. It could, very well happen to be, could have well been the devil, for all we know. So with that being said, those are my 3 stories for October 2nd, 2019, as part of the 31 Nights of Halloween. I really hope you guys enjoyed that, hopefully that small visual spectrum that I kind of presented to you guys. It was kind of neat to do. I had asked, people online if they had any stories that they would like to share in order to maybe, have them read on the podcast. So I got to give it to Danny, Dexter, and Belinda for submitting those stories to the podcast. I really, truly appreciate it. You guys' stories are, fantastic. I'm looking forward to reading several more stories on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, I noticed that since I do live in Harlingen, like I said, I am from South Texas. I do have this podcast show that I have done for quite some time now, and I haven't really disclosed my location. But I mean, with a good purpose. I mean, not a lot of people have, really said or mentioned, where they're from or what they do. But I'm from the small town of Harlingen, where not a lot really goes on. The city is growing. It's coming together. I've been trying to find out lately if the city has anything historical in terms of haunted, buildings or haunted, locations here in the city. And I can't really find much history, of the city of Harlingen. And it's kind of bothersome because I had just moved into this new apartment. this loft, if you will. And this building that I moved into used to be the old KGBT radio station, news station building. Used to be office buildings. Used to belong to the local radio TV station. And there has been a story on my end that I had learned from a local paranormal group that does investigations, and they have informed me that there has been a hanging. A man has hung himself in a building there, a building here in Harlingen, or it just so happens to be where I moved into my new apartment. I really wish I could make that up. I'm being dead serious, but I contacted this guy who is hosting a paranormal investigation haunted tour of the city of Harlingen later this month, and I had contacted him because he does paranormal investigations outside of another nearby town called Brownsville, and he did inform me that there had been a hanging in that building a long time ago. I haven't noticed anything peculiar happen at the apartment. Haven't noticed anything strange at the building, but this building has been standing since about the 1930s, 1940s, and it's an amazing building. It's 3 apartments per floor, 24 units throughout the whole building. It's a beautifully redone building. The concrete walls and the ceilings are great. The community is nice. It's a really nice building, and I'm just so intrigued by the history that it could possibly hold, of like previous stories that people might know from, back in the day, or what they know about this building. So, I'm more intrigued and more focused and more, observant when it comes to, seeing things and hearing things. But I for one would really love to know more about like local history in regards to anything being haunted or any haunted attractions. In a nearby town also, just, on the very outside of Harlingen, is a city called San Benito. Now, in San Benito, Texas, there used to be a 2-story house right next to the Longhorn Cattle Company, which is a restaurant there in San Benito along the expressway. So the story goes that this 2-story house that used to be next to the Longhorn Cattle Company restaurant was haunted. And I remember growing up, and my uncle would tell me that this 2-story house was the house of a girl who had hung herself in the 2nd story. And I remember one night, me and my cousins and my brother, we went walking with my uncle to that house, that 2-story house, since my aunt lived just a few houses down from that 2-story house along the expressway. And I remember us walking to the house, and I remember not being scared. I remember just being more intrigued and interested in what that 2-story house was. I've always remember passing it on my way to my aunt's house and seeing it, and was just very curious about it, and just never got around to really, get off the car, really just look at it and see what it was about. So it turned out that this 2-story house was really old and decrepit, and it was just like a sight to see, because if you see horror movies and you notice that old houses look a certain way, you're more than likely to be interested in the way that they look and their appearance and so on and so forth. Well, this house had everything. It was a white house with blue window I would say window blinds, but shutters, blue shutters, white house, brown door, 2-story, no windows. It looked like a house that had not been completely done by like construction, but at the same time it looked as if this house had been abandoned for so many years, stripped of windows, broken windows or something. But there was no windows whatsoever, not one piece of glass to be seen anywhere on the windows. at all. No glass. So anyways, I remember walking to the house with my uncle and my cousins and my brother, and I noticed that we would hear strange noises coming from my aunt's house, like chains jiggling and some other weird stuff. I remember walking to this house, and we were standing in front of the house, and my uncle had mentioned that if you are driving a car and you pull your car in front of the house and shine your lights at the second story window, you can see the girl hanging from the second story. And of course, me, just not knowing if that was true or not, didn't believe it at the time. But at that point, we started hearing noises and started hearing chains jingling and stuff, and we booked it, man. I remember that we took off and we ran back to my aunt's house, and running along the expressway with cars just flying by was just amazing, man. I can't for the life of me think of what possessed us to go there in the first place, but I can honestly say that that was the very first time that I had encountered anything remotely just weird and strange. But I mean, let alone that's as far as I remember, that's all I could remember locally happening stories that I have experienced firsthand. But another story that I wanted to share with you guys before my time is up with you guys on this episode was that a lot of you know that I do work at night. A lot of you guys do know that I work overnight graveyard hours. I don't spend a lot of time in buildings when things happen. I am a security guard. I do happen to drive around a lot at night, so I respond to calls and alarm calls when needed. So with that being said, I wanted to share with you guys this last story before the end of the episode of this one time where I responded to an alarm call at one of the elementary schools that we look after. And I remember meeting my coworker there because this is one of the elementary schools that was kind of located in a little bad area, little bad neighborhood where we've had problems before, but nothing too serious. So we had gotten there and we had awaited for police to arrive because we can't really make any movement or any entry into the premises until we have police presence made available. We can't go we can go inside the school, but we can't do anything further other than investigating something like an open door, broken window, stuff like that, until we call the police. So we made entry to the school and we turned off the alarm, and we noticed that the school had identified that a certain zone in a certain area was picking up a motion alarm in the school. Now the weird thing was, when we made entry, the school was completely silent. It was 2 a.m, no sound, no nothing. We walked the outside campus, the outside of the exterior of the school. We didn't find anything, so we went back inside and we checked all the doors, all the exits and windows and everything, noting that nothing had happened. We had started to make our way to the cafeteria, and we had noticed that all the lights were off. Everything was completely pitch dark and black, just like it should be. But when we got to the cafeteria down the hall, we noticed that the radio was on super loud with the door closed. So what had happened was that we had made entry into the cafeteria and somebody had left the radio on extremely loud, the loudest it could be on. And we were kind of wondering, who would have left the radio on? I mean, the custodians leave at 11:30. Obviously they do their cleaning and they do their their walk through the school. You would think that somebody would have shut it off if they heard it. And the cafeteria doors were open, so it's kind of hard to miss, unless they just forgot to turn it off. But we had shut off the radio, and turned it down, and went about our business, checking the rest of the school. We were walking down the hallway, and my coworker had mentioned to me to wait in the middle of the hallway to notice if there was any motion or any detection from anything coming from two midpoint. I was in the midpoint of two hallways to notice if there was any motion or any noise. While he went to the front door to wait for the police. So he went to the front door and he went outside and he waited for the police to get there. He was checking. While I was there in the middle of the hallway, I heard somebody say, "Psst, hey." And I remember having that feeling of my heart falling to my stomach and having that sense of like, oh shit, that oh shit moment. I've never felt that, never experienced that in my life, but it's clear as day, somebody had whispered, "Psst, hey," and it was, clear as, as it could ever be. My coworker was outside, there was nobody else in the school, and I had literally just was on the brink of shitting myself, just from hearing that alone. I had told my coworker when he came back inside, and he was just like, "Dude, I was outside, like, I don't know what you heard." But to this day, I mean, I have experienced several things that have happened, and in several locations, several schools and stuff. We have a running theory that there is a couple of locations, couple of schools that are haunted. There's another story, a short story of a middle school that is here in the city that is haunted because a teacher or a student had hung themselves right before Christmas break. And since the school district usually lets out for the holiday break for 2 weeks, it's been said that this hanging had happened before the holidays, and 2 weeks went by and nobody had noticed that they were missing, or they were just apparently hanging there for 2 weeks during the holidays. So I'm not too sure if that's true. I don't know how true that is, or that is any sort of truth to that. But I mean, just the thought of it alone is scary and weird enough on its own. A coworker of mine who I had previously worked with at this same job before he had left to Chicago last year, entered this same building on a night that I wasn't working, and he had took video and photos of himself walking down the hallway of the same middle school, and he had noticed that he had picked up some sort of shape or face in the video that he had taken pictures of and he had shown me. And I kind of just laughed it off. I mean, it was just paranoia at this point, kind of hearsay if you really believe it. But I'm not too big on believing that ghosts and spirits are real and shit like that. But I mean, once you experience something like that, you're kind of left wondering, if stuff like that really does exist. I mean, I for one have believed it for a long time. Maybe a spirit or something does stay behind. Maybe there is some sort of connection that people do feel, with people who they still see and and stuff like that. It has been said though that our own pets, even babies, can see the spirits of past loved ones and past family members, and that we don't see, that that they can still see people or sense people that used to live there or used to be some way involved in our lives in some way, shape, or form. Pets are very keen to pick up on scents and I guess notice that they feel like somebody's there, but somebody's not really there. I mean, if your dog is growling down the hallway that's nothing there, then I'm pretty sure it's a spirit or something that they probably see. I've heard of stories of babies who have just laying there, sitting there, very quiet, and all of a sudden they're just they're making conversation with somebody that standing beside us or something, or they see something and they just smile, or they make noises, or they cry for no apparent reason. I mean, I obviously being a child and being a baby comes with being mysterious and being curious, not mysterious but being curious. in a sense of, getting to know the world, getting to know yourself, getting to know what the stuff around you, the shapes, colors, all that. But I mean, it is known that, that little kids have the wildest of imaginations, and they can see stuff that we don't. So, I mean, it's not just, infants and, little kids, but toddlers and, even kids, as they grow a little older, they notice, shadows and, people that they've never seen before. And it's a bizarre sight to see and weird stories to hear. I remember my nephew telling me one time that he had saw a shadow walk into my room one night. My nephew's 3 years old, and he is adorable. He is hands down adorable. He is the funniest, and I listened to what he had to say. He told me that there was a shadow that walked into my room one morning, but I had mentioned to him that it was me coming home from work early in the morning. So I mean, I get what he was saying. I mean, he was honest, but I mean, it is what it is. It was just me. But I want to thank you guys for sticking with me for this episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed the stories and, the tales of this episode 2 of the 31 Nights of Halloween. It has been a lot of fun. Oh man, I don't remember having this much fun doing an episode, telling stories. It just makes the show that much better. I mean, I'm still trying to work out the kinks of adding music and sound effects to the stories, but I really am trying my best in how I'm trying to present these stories and how I'm reading them to you. And I really hope you guys are getting a kick out of it in some way, shape, or form. I may not be the best at telling stories, but I really am, certainly am trying to do my best. But in the meantime, guys, I really hope that you guys stick around for the rest of the 31 Nights of Halloween series, going on all throughout the month of October, all the way leading up to Halloween. 31 new shows throughout 31 nights of Halloween, throughout 31 days of October, obviously. Live shows throughout the month. Don't know when. I know it's going to be either a Friday or Saturday during the month, but I'm not too sure. As I very rarely do live shows, but I will be doing live shows throughout the month to kind of maybe hopefully engage the people into the shows and, get the ball rolling on a few horror related, topics and things that I want to discuss as, the month rolls on. But thank you guys again for sticking through the show and being proud supporters, being, around to hear the stories, tell the stories. As I get more stories coming in and everything down the road, I encourage you guys and plead with you guys to submit stories that I can read on the show and really present to the everybody who listens to this podcast to really be an active participant and member of the Real Radar community. I really appreciate it, guys. You guys have a great rest of the day. The new episode drops tonight at 9 p.m. Episode 3. You guys will not be disappointed. I have quite a bit to talk about, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you guys on episode 3 of the 31 Nights of Halloween. It's bizarre. Alright guys, I'll see you then. This is Real Radar Radio.